to send us a message through the chat box option. Right, Jetta, let's move on to our first story. $12 billion e-commerce suffers as Twitter ban costs 7.5 billion naira in 3 days. This report is contained in the Guardian newspaper. However, it's from a watchdog organization called NetBlocks, who monitor cybersecurity and governance of the internet, and they've estimated the loss each hour of social media's gagging in Nigeria to about 102.5 million naira, bringing the daily loss to 2.5 billion naira. Cheta, of course, beyond the economic impact of the Twitter ban, a number of opinions have come forth from the announcement over the weekend, and now today we have reports here.
Okay, before I talk, I will cede space to Mr. C to also say his own because he's the lawyer here.
Yes.
And there's the legal implication, which the second story talks a lot.
May I just even just take the headline of the second story? SIRAP YRC, that's the youth rights campaign, condemned Twitter ban, urge Commonwealth to sanction Nigeria. They are urging the head of the Secretary General of Commonwealth, Honorable Patricia Scotland QC, to sanction Nigeria through the Commonwealth Charter over its suspension of Twitter. So over to you, the first two stories for today.
Okay, so
Barrister C.
Mr. Okay.
Okay, C Esquire.
C Esquire.
So SERAP in a letter dated the 5th of June 2021 addressed the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, has urged that Nigeria be sanctioned. And what is this sanction? That Nigeria be immediately suspended from the Commonwealth. And the reasons given are simple and we can all relate with them. That there's been a consistent repression of human rights, particularly the right to freedom of expression, access to information, and media freedom, as well as disregard for the rule of law. And all of these have become too administration. Other administrations had these faults, but it's become a recurring incident. Now, why are they asking for a suspension? On Friday, towards the evening, towards the close of business, Nigerians were woken to rude shock that the federal government was planning to suspend operations of Twitter in Nigeria. Now, some of us thought that it's just a threat, it won't be carried on. Last Saturday morning, some Nigerians couldn't access Twitter anymore. Now, why did this happen? The president issued a series of tweets in response to the goings on in the Southeast. And he did say that he would respond in a language that the perpetrators would understand. Now, Twitter has rules. And if part of their rules are that if a number of users complain about a tweet which they consider offensive, and they check it against their own rules and it is correct, the complaint is correct, they will take down the tweet. Now, this is not restricted to Nigeria. President Trump, when he was still in office, had his tweets taken down. He was suspended from Twitter when he was president of the most powerful nation on the earth currently. Now, the response of the Nigerian government was predictable. The Minister for Information says, how come you take down our president's tweet, you don't take down IPOB tweet? Excuse me, nobody complained about IPOB tweet. And it's a reflection of how your government is perceived, that when you make statements like that, nobody's even trying to make a best case scenario for you.
It's actually demeaning the government for you to be comparing the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to one who they call Nnamdi Kanu.
Okay, moving on, Cheta. So now they fail to forget that even the Nigerian president, for as long as he has signed on to use Twitter's services, is bound by the rules.
Well, I want us to touch on some things because I'll read Bengus's comment and then I'll use that to ask 7 questions. Spin doctors are all over the place, he says, as usual, sensationalizing the whole issue of too many people will lose their jobs, Nigeria, etc. And he says, what business does anyone do on Twitter that can't be taken to the other social media platforms? Can they please also tell us how much Twitter has lost since the ban? Who Twitter app? For me, it's good riddance. I'm bringing up this comment because I think it's important to address 7 things. One of which is that people just think it's just, they banned of the business, it's about the money. But we look at from and Cheta and Mr. C, from a human rights perspective, from the freedom of expression, or in terms of freedom of speech,
From
access to
press
information.
seekers.
Yes.
So let me
So-
address what Gbenga
So
said
beyond the
first.
yeah.
So you allow something like this to stand, and I think it's important to point out that this was done without any legal backing whatsoever.
Yeah.
It was just done on a whim. It means that, as he said, I'll quote him, he said, we can take this business to Instagram. They can ban Instagram. They can ban Facebook. They can ban, as in, I think the key thing to point out, or one of the key things to point out was that, from my own perspective, the meat of that statement that was released by the Federal Ministry of Information, essentially suspending Twitter activities, was not the suspension of Twitter itself, but the fact that they asked all social media and OTT, WhatsApp, Telegram, Netflix, Skype, everything to come and register. You understand? It's a precaution. Then yesterday, the FGI broke a story that they've started talking with people in China about implementing a firewall.
It's also in this part.
So it's all of this thing is a we are supposed to be a democratic country.
Break down the firewall for us, please.
China has something that is called the Great Firewall, which essentially allows the government to control all internet traffic coming in and out of the country, censor stuff. So, for example, if you're in China now and you search for Tiananmen Square, this 2 days ago, today is 7, so 3 days ago was the 32nd anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre.
Yeah.
If you search for Tiananmen Square in China, on Google or on whatever search engine you want to use, you cannot find anything. It throws up a blank. If you search for something as mundane as people used to yab the president of China, Xi Jinping, that he looks like Winnie the Pooh.
So
It's
so
the black.
the implication
it's
of
just
that is
exactly.
that
So
look at what happened with
it's
EndSARS, for
thin
instance.
skinness.
So it means that we're already talking about history being taken off our curriculum. So we don't have, our children are not taught what happened in the past. So it means that there's even more censor of what we as a people can consume directed by the government.
Okay.
Yes, as in basically the government wants to be the only one that can push narrative. That's just what it is. See, if we're a dictatorship and everybody agrees that we're a dictatorship and everybody is accepting to live under a dictatorship, then that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But we are ostensibly a democracy. When Buhari wanted to become president, he went around all the 36 states 2 times in 2015 and 2019 to beg for our votes. So that is what people need to understand. He is our employee. He's not our father.
All right.
So we have a right to query him and we have a right to criticize him for bad performance.
Right.
And the bad performance at the end of the day is the fact that we have a total of the combined populations of Belgium and Tunisia unemployed, walking around in the country doing nothing. Every other thing is a side attraction. This kind of thing. So the economic implications of this is, I can tell you, because I was on 3 of those calls on Saturday.
Yeah.
Nigeria has lost potential investments because investments that were coming, people are like, no, we don't want to come and invest in a country where the government can just wake up and do stuff arbitrarily. Investors do not like arbitrariness. That is key. Nigeria has lost standing. I mean, look at how on Saturday evening, I flipped through Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, all of them used us to do yeah. That kind of standing, it's incalculable. There was something that an investment analyst said on Ugo Dre hosts this thing on Saturday mornings, and an investment analyst who is based in the US said deals are done in back rooms. It's not what you see, and that he can tell you very confidently that it's not the back rooms that he was in over the weekend. A lot of people were like, Nigeria, nah, just because of that Twitter ban. And then consider that we have one of the things that we used to beat our chest with pride is our thriving tech sector. Tech sector.
I was going to
That's
say
Twitter.
that in terms of investment in tech, we've seen a number of money coming to talk about Flutter.
At the very least, all of them are reconsidering. At the very least. Look
Right.
at the fact that Twitter itself took its West Africa headquarters to Ghana. If you had seen the job ads that they put out after they announced the decision to site in Ghana, all the jobs were targeted at Nigeria.
Yes.
But they looked at it, they had done their risk analysis. This is so one of the sector I work in is in risk analysis. So I have a fair idea of how it works.
Yeah.
Regulatory overreach is something that comes up consistently in all of these conversations. Regulators, you people regulate.
Chacha has spoken to the economic implications
Yeah.
of this nonsense going on. Now, let's look at the legal implications.
All right.
Now, I'm not sure this ban will withstand any serious challenge in court. However, the
Because
courts
have been closed.
have been closed for the last 60 days.
62.
So what's the
60.
impact of Malami, that's the Attorney General of the Federation's claims that he's going to begin to persecute those who are
No,
using
So,
The word is persecute, not prosecute.
So- the first question I have to Mr. Malami is prosecute them where? The court's on strike. Now, beyond that, the Constitution guarantees certain rights. And I'm going to identify them so that our listeners quickly understand. Now, Section 22 of the Constitution says that the press, the radio, and other agencies of the mass media shall at all times be free to hold the government responsible and accountable. We mustn't lose sight of that. Moving forward, Section 38 talks about freedom of thought. Section 39, freedom of expression. Now, freedom of expression means that every Nigerian is entitled to hold opinions and receive and impart ideas and information without interference.
So it means opinions. You have a right to your personal
Yeah, you can
opinion.
express your
Yes.
opinion, you can receive opinions.
All right.
And by using Twitter to express that opinion, we're expressing our freedom of expression. Now, you don't need to be physically present in a particular location to express your opinion or receive an opinion because technology has enabled that. Same thing with Section 40, which is the right to peaceful assembly and association. Before the advent of tech, we would have to physically gather somewhere. We gather on Twitter now.
Yeah.
We're peaceful. We can receive ideas. We can. So, in suspending Twitter, are you not infringing on the right of every Nigerian to peacefully impart opinions and thoughts?
Right.
Now, Mr. Malemi also backed his statement that
Yeah.
he can prosecute or he will prosecute.
Persecute.
He's the legal term is
Section 36, subsection 15 of the Constitution, if I'm correct, says you cannot be tried. I'm using the exact wording for a criminal, for an offense which, for anything which is not already stated as an offense in the criminal books of the country.
And has this been
It's
stated?
not stated.
Just
Okay.
Nation, federal or state, that criminalizes the use of Twitter.
How about any legislation that criminalizes going against a directive from the president?
I'm not aware of any such legislation.
Okay,
Now,
just
beyond
clarify.
that, if the honorable minister believes
It's
that,
not honorable.
okay, if the minister for
The honorable
justice,
minister.
if the AGF believes that it's an offense to continue to use Twitter, can he kindly inform the public what the sanction is?
All right. Thank you very much. We need to go on a quick break right now. When we come back, I'll take some comments and move on to other stories. There's so many questions still left unanswered here, but we have to move on. So many things.
But again, which
All
court?
of the PDP has threatened to go.
PDP is going to court, SERAP is going to court, MD is going to court. But which
You know who I
court?
think should be sued?
Oh, yes, actually.
No.
What would they do?
No, I didn't have time. No, they relied on, there are some provisions of the NCC Act.
They did it without a court order.
No.
Oh.
No,
We have to
Section
mention that. We're
148.
coming
No,
back now. We're coming back now. Smooth 98.1, Love Music, Love Life, still freshly for 981. And just before the break, we were talking about Twitter ban, the legal perspective, and of course the economic impact and business impact of that. We need to move on. I take some comments and go on to the other stories, but I'm sure you'd agree with me that this is top news. So you'd forgive me if we just touch very quickly on the other stories. Mr. C, we're saying something off air, and that's why you should be watching us on YouTube, because you get to hear things on and off air. But Mr. C, you were talking about and Cheta actually, about who should be sued. If you were to sue, if we talk
I
about
would sue the
Sarah,
telcos.
you sue the telcos. Why would you sue the telcos?
Because they implemented this without a court order.
Okay.
So basically when you hold them accountable, they realize that there's a cost to just running and implementing without a consultant. I understand that they're afraid of fines and all of that. I get that. But they should also realize that there's a legal cost to running to implement whatever illegal order a government gives.
So are you saying, Mr. T, are you saying that telcos could have refused to follow that order based on the fact that they didn't receive a court
No,
order?
I have a slightly different position from Chita.
Okay.
Sections 148 of the NCT Act states that the NCC can empower an operator or a company to impair services if they're in the national interest. And Section 149 is also similar of the NCT Act.
Yeah.
Now, based on the fact that the NCC is the regulator, they can only challenge that in court. However, those provisions will not stand up because they're in violent conflict with the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution.
Well, until you touch their money, then go to court. So, like someone has said earlier on, that there are other sources of, data. Twitter is not the only thing that we use data for. The moment they start to touch the source of their money, then they'll go to court. But let's take some comments so we can move on very quickly. Rotimi says, "Good morning, Ayo. The issue here is that the implications of the ban are more far-reaching than we realize. There are far more serious situations that threaten our corporate existence." Eguano says, loving Cheta's play of words. Sam from Ikoyi says, "I just feel bad with these set of leaders who have and the decided policies they enact." From Big Hope says, "Do you still perceive?" Tajudeen, no, there's no Big Hopes here. "Do you still perceive that AGF as intelligent enough to know that we need a law to prosecute?" So that's Mr. C is talking to. Goki from UK says, "What a democracy we practice where the masses have no input in government except just to vote on election days. Government can just vet one day and instruct citizens not to wear shoes anymore." I wish we could take a few more, but we need to go to the other stories. Okay, so I'd ask that you please take this touch on very quickly, though they're very important stories here. The Igongan community, I won't call it massacre, but the violence erupted. The 17 persons have been reportedly shot dead by gunmen suspected to be herdsmen at Igongo in the Baraba North local government area of Oyo State.
That registered massacre, basically massacre almost 4 people and above. So that's a massacre. The community is blaming somebody called Wakil. Said that he's some Serki Fulani or something like that. And that's because he felt offended by something. He swore revenge.
He was arrested actually. He was said to be a terrorist in that area.
So the point is, who is this Wakil that it seems that nothing can happen to him? Because the community said that he was arrested and then he was released because of orders from above. This kind of thing is where it starts from. Basically, some people begin to think that they're alone to themselves. And what will ultimately happen is that the community, unhappy at the deaths of their kin, will take their anger out on anyone who's perceived as a kinsman of this Wakil character. And that is where collective punishment starts, which is wrong, but which, because of the action gone, basically it's distinctly ethnic. Gandhi Adams has said this attack is a declaration of war by the North on the Southwest. The Oyo Assembly has called for an emergency meeting. Both the governors of Oyo and Ondo State have spoken. Makinde in Oyo, in whose domain this happens, called for calm. While Akeredolu released a statement activating Amotekun and calling for joint operations. Most tellingly for me is that when Sunday Igboho, the day after, visited Ikiti, there was a huge crowd to welcome him. I saw that kind of thing in Nnamdi Kanu's house in Umuahia. When I went there, a huge crowd hailing him, a clear demagogue. It tells you where it is going because of the inactions of the government. I'm unhappy at this, but it's natural for people to react like this. And I place all the blame at the doorstep of the president. The truth is that, okay, think about it. Since this happened 48 hours ago, there hasn't been a word from Buhari about it. 88 people were killed in Kebbi. Buhari hasn't said anything about it.
Well, he has released a statement about TB Joshua's death, though. So it's not like he's not speaking. He's just not touching important issues. I just wanted to mention that it's not like he's speaking, but not important issues.
So let's continue.
Go on. Show that the president is speaking, just like as we mentioned with regards to.
So essentially, the lives of Nigerians are not important.
Yes, exactly what I was trying to land on. That he's speaking about other issues that are not as important as what is. Yes, I mean, the death of TV Joshua is not irrelevant. However, I'm
It
saying
is.
that in
How's it
terms
relevant?
compared to what is happening, CBN increases forex allocations to banks, assures liquidity for invisibles. Vanguard newspaper. Please touch on this. It's a very straightforward story.
Okay, so very quickly, the city and governor had a meeting with the managing directors of the deposit money banks, and he's read the riot act to them that when the customers make a request for foreign exchange to satisfy travel allowances, tuition, medical fees, and other sundry matters, that the banks should attend to them and stop giving them excuses that forex is hard to get. And they've also, and there's a hotline, and the number is 0700225526, and it's toll free.
Okay.
Or you can send an email to cpd@cbn.gov.ng. So it's really straightforward that you have to approach your bank, make your request, even if you're a medium and small enterprises owner, and if they do not attend to you, then you can then forward details to the central bank.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm seeing comments here with regards to our YouTube stream. Thanks for your feedback. We'll definitely look into that to give you a better experience. However, a few comments there still. Don't we think Malami's order is directed at the ISPs and the telcos, given that it specifically addresses those that fail to obey the deactivation directive?
His statement spoke to the BBC that is directed at individuals, ISPs, and telcos.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have the next story here on Jumbo Pay's Cheta. Legislators Jumbo Pay. Oh, is that Mr. C? Okay, so let me go on then to IGP. Oh, I think let's talk about the
Talk about Jumbo Pay.
Talk about
Jumbo
That's
Pay.
good.
Okay, Jumbo Pay.
Show me
first
the
stops
money.
National Assembly from fixing lawmakers' salaries. So maybe some good news back to back. CBN increasing forex allocation, court ruling in favor of the people in this instance. But the Federal High Court in Lagos has ordered the National Assembly to put a stop to the practice of fixing its members' pay.
Okay, so very quickly, in 2018, shows 30.5 million as monthly running cost and 750K as monthly salaries and allowances. So great, and Monday Ubani and another gentleman filed a suit challenging the ability of the National Assembly to fix its salaries and challenging the fact that those jumbo-sized remuneration were not in line with what was approved by the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Now, on Thursday, the Federal High Court, in a well-considered judgment delivered by Justice Obiozo, who evidently is a very sound judge, he ruled that the National Assembly, both chambers, with the National Assembly Service Commission, have no power to direct, command, or insist that the Revenue Mobilization Allocation Fiscal Commission give members of the National Assembly the salaries that they choose, that they should fix their salaries in line with the economic realities. Now, it's instructive that when this case came here, the National Assembly, that's the Senate and the House of Reps, denied that their members ever collected the sums stated by Mr. Shosani. However, they refused to disclose what they're collecting or what they have ever collected. National Assembly Service Commission said they were not involved in the process of paying them the allowances referred to. Now, Justice Obiozo has directed that the salaries be reviewed downwards and that the RMAFC should not take directions from the National Assembly. Now, expect them to appeal this judgment. And I also expect that there will be non-compliance with this judgment.
That's a very strong statement. Are you saying that the National Assembly is can go against a ruling from a recognized court, a high court?
You assume that
the president has been disobeying.
You take your directions from the top.
Yeah.
You want body language on the top. So if the top selects the judgment, it will recognize. You also take your leading from there.
So what hope have we? I mean, with the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature.
Let me just serving goes on 62 days.
And
tells you everything you need to know.
But you see, very quickly, 30 seconds. The silver lining for us is that in 2023 is almost here. We must now call our various elected members, try, and tell them, look, you are answerable to us. You are employees. tell us how much you're collecting. And if they refuse, in 2023, get rid of the whole bunch.
Shanu from Liquid says if this ruling stands as regards the salary restructuring of the NAS members, it will be the best news ever. All right, federal government moves to end health workers' migration from the Punch newspaper. Cheta, this reads as a very, happy headline. However, the details, not a lot in this story, it's just plans. So the federal government has said efforts are going to discourage the migration of health workers. Thankfully, it's not that they're going to ban them. They say that they're going to improve conditions.
Thinking of ending the migration without doing. You remember that during the pandemic, health workers went on strike not once, not twice, 3 times. During the pandemic, that's during the height of the pandemic. Why? There's only one way to stop
Interpretation.
this. Money matter.
Okay.
There's only one way to stop it, and it's instructive that we're just dealing with a story where I think uniformly agrees that the lot of them will ignore the ruling and continue to award themselves mega pay. You have a situation where a radiologist who is working in, say, random place, Texas, earns about $100,000 a year. $100,000, that's starting salary. $100,000 a year translates to current rates, 50.2 million naira a year. I mean, and then you are paying somebody 5,000 naira as hazard allowance during pandemic. I mean, if it were me first with such this thing, and then I get a job offer from the Texas health system, and then Nigeria is telling me no, be patriotic.
The good thing here that they're saying they want to improve the conditions of doctors. They haven't said how. They haven't said how.
There was a young doctor who was denied a visa to the UK because he stated what his income should have been.
No, not
but he had not been paid.
He stated that this is what my income should have been, but I have not been paid for 7 months. It was there. And he's appealing.
Well,
and he will get it. And I wish he gets it.
A doctor's 20-year salary is what a senator earns in just 2 months. Think on that. Well, let's go on to our next story. Oh gosh, we're out of time. I don't think we can take this anymore. This is quite important. It's deposited in Lagos morgue. 3 from Lekki toll gate, according to pathologists. And IGP squad kills army deserter. 4 others in field area attack the Punch newspaper. Like Cheta mentioned, because there will still definitely be an update on that. Because going from that story, the chairman of the committee, Justice Okobi, has asked them to go back and investigate a bit further and then come back. So we'll certainly be talking about that later on. But thank you so very much to all our listeners and of course to our analysts today. Thank you, Mr. C. Adi, Mr. Oh gosh, okay. Well, you're not allowed to tweet legally. And then I don't know if it's legally or not legally because you told us now that there's no constitutional provision for that. And then Cheta, just Cheta wants it. You can please continue the conversation with us on WhatsApp.
Start on Twitter.
WhatsApp. And don't forget, at 9 o'clock, we're going to be talking in detail. We have 2 very important guests coming to speak to us still on the Twitter ban. We have Engineer Gbenga Adebayo, who is the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telcos in Nigeria. And we also have human rights lawyer, activist Chidi Odinkalu at 9 o'clock. We'll also open the phone line so that if we couldn't take your contribution at this time, we hope to take that then. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Are we coming to this?
No.
Because as far as I know, Chidi is not